I'm going to try to throw in my home run call every day from now on. My top option, that's my my most guaranteed to hit a home run today. And today it's definitely Max Muncy at the top of this order. I love Muncy.
Here comes Muncy, hits a ball well to deep right field, back towards the wall. It is gone. Leadoff home run for Muncy.
Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm back to break down this 9-game slate on Fanduel and Draftkings. If you tuned in last week, you'll know I was doing a free t-shirt giveaway, and we do have a winner. Tucker Johnson, if you're watching this video, you're the winner of the KJK DFS free t-shirt. All you have to do is go over there on Twitter and personal message me your t-shirt size, and I'll send that out to you. So with that being said, congratulations, Tucker. And before we move into the breakdown, I do have an announcement of a few new things. My Patreon package over there on Patreon is linked in the description, and I've made some big upgrades. If you look at this chart, you'll now see with a member of my MLB Patreon package, you'll get the starting pitching chart, and then each one of these positions will be broken down to show each position on DraftKings and each hitter's splits. So you'll be able to break down these hitters by sample size. I've imported statistics from Fangraphs from 2018 through 2020, so those current season stats are starting to kick in. So you'll get WOBA, ISO, slugging, BABIP, fly ball, and hard hit rate versus righties and lefties. So you can break down each and every position. And one thing to mention is that these are color coded by each statistic, by each position. And my reasoning for that is we play daily fantasy sports. In daily fantasy sports, we have to pick a play at each position. So in my opinion, we should be breaking down each one of these positions by each category and comparing, which players look the best on the day. We play a daily fantasy sports. So, the K percentage is broken down by catchers, and it's color coded by the specific catcher position. So, the green is the best in the catcher position and the red is the worst. And I think that makes the most sense. And it's something I haven't really seen in a lot of, content websites. They break down things by color code of what's bad and what's good, but they don't do positionally. And you might be thinking, well, then how do I compare everyone on the slate? And I've solved that by adding this utility drop down. So if you go over to the utility drop down, you'll see that this is where you'll have every single player on the slate. So you can break down every single player, by hard contact rate and hard hit rate. And then you can compare, righty versus lefty. So obviously you're going to want to, factor in who they're facing as a starter that day. But then you can also look at the righties for, any possibilities of who they'll be facing out of the bullpen. And you'll also get my power rankings and my cheat sheet. So my power rankings, I'll break down my top 3 play at each position, no matter what the price tag, just the best spots, the optimal plays. And my cheat sheet, I will break down each and every play by price tier. So you'll have high price, mid price, low price. And yeah, so that's a breakdown of what I have to offer in my Patreon MLB package. I think it's going to be very valuable and offer you guys, some good content for helping build your lineups. And I also really appreciate if you become a patron over there because it helps support me in my efforts. So with that being said, before we get into it, if you want to follow me over on Twitter at KJK_DFS, I'll also be tweeting out updates, throughout the day. And if you become a patron of mine, you'll gain access to my exclusive Discord chat. We'll be able to ask me questions up until lock. So yeah, some new stuff going on, some exciting stuff. Link will be in the description for all that stuff. And with that being said, let's start breaking down the slate today. So as always, the very first thing I like to do when deciding the pitchers you want to target is I like to sort my sheet by K rate. We're playing fantasy sports. We get points for strikeouts. So I like to give you guys an idea of, who's our best target for K rate on the day. And the first option that stands out for K rate today is that and Robbie Ray. However, when factoring in Robbie Ray's matchup and where he's playing today, he has a Coors Field battle with the Colorado Rockies. So, while he does lead the slate in K percentage, he's a guy that I'm going to advise not playing today because, he has to go into Coors Field and take on these Rockies who slug at home. And it's the Coors Field effect. If you haven't tuned in my other videos, I've explained, Coors Field in Colorado is a place where the ball flies. The ball doesn't break the same either for pitchers. So if a pitcher throws a curveball, it's not going to get the same breaking effect. The air makes it hang up. So, if Robbie goes to throw a curveball and it won't get that same tumble effect. It'll hang in the air, and pitchers that succeed at Coors have more of the fastball slider combo rather than like a 12-6 breaking curveball. And I'm not going to get into Robbie's repertoire right now, but when looking at his pitch stats and stuff, these are stuff anyone pitching at Coors you have to look into. This is stuff I'll mention in my premium content over there on Patreon to anyone. As I break down pitching and stuff later in the day, I'll throw those comments in my power rankings, etc. But for yourself, if you're looking at pitch data, that's something to keep in mind. So not to ramble, but that's important. The Coors Field is a thing, and I'm not going to want to target any Coors Field pitchers today. So with that being said, our second option on the list is that in Patrick Corbin. Corbin's pretty solid across the board. He comes in with a 29.7% K rate, a 3.37 Sierra, 14.9 swing strike rate is very impressive. And then the walk and the hard contact stuff is where he fades off a little bit, but he's still very good. And he's got a 28% K against righties, and then moving over to lefties, he's got a 36.7%. So 36.7 against lefties is absolutely elite. And, that just tells us we prefer to target him in, matchups where he's taking on a team that's left-handed heavy. And when looking at who Corbin has to face today, you'll see he's taking on the New York Mets. And the Mets come in with a 4.09 implied team total, while the Nats have a 4.41. So Corbin comes in at a 125 favorite. And when looking up and down this lineup, you'll see they do have quite a few righties. And they have some righties that mash left-handed pitching. J.D. Davis, Pete Alonso, Wilson Ramos, and Brian Dozier are all notorious for crushing left-handed pitching. But with that being said, they do have high strikeout rates, so that's when Corbin's elite stuff's going to come into play. So I could see going ahead and stacking these Mets in tournaments as a low-owned stack because they can't crush lefties, but we definitely have more interest in Corbin. Vegas is telling us, he's a 125 favorite, and the Mets only have a 4.09 implied team total. So got some interest in Corbin today. You're going to have to pay at that 10-4 price tag on DraftKings, but he's worth the price tag. He's our top pitcher on the slate. And then second guy to keep an eye on because, a big factor is his matchup, is that in Dallas, Kikel over here at 7-8 on DraftKings. He comes in as a 155 favorite, and he gets to take on the Detroit Tigers in Detroit, which is a pretty good pitcher's park overall. And if you look at the weather, we got 11-mile-an-hour winds blowing in from right field, so that always helps. Looks like there could be some rain, so we'll have to keep an eye out. If there's going to be a mid-game delay and a chance for Kikel not to get his full workload, that's going to, we're not going to want to pay that 7-8 price tag for him on DraftKings, but if we find out the weather is good and it's just going to be a light sprinkle or something, we'll be good to go. And when looking at Kikel's numbers, you'll see he's got a 7.8% K rate, so not elite strikeout stuff, but when you look at his ground ball, his fly ball, his walk, and his hard hit rate, they're very good. He's got a 55.9 ground ball, 22.7 fly ball, and the hard contact rate's great, best on the slate. And then moving over to his splits against righties, once again, he's solid across the board. The strikeout rate isn't the greatest at 16.3, but we can live with it. And lefties, he's absolutely elite. These are very impressive numbers. The strikeout rate bumps up to 24.5. So, if at all possible, we prefer him in matchups with a lot of lefties in the lineup. And when looking at what Detroit's rolling out today, they do have pretty much all righties. It looks like they might roll out one lefty. But Detroit strikes out a ton. So, when you factor in that Kikel has very good control and very good, fly ball, ground ball rates, that's going to make me like him because his K rate's naturally going to rise in this matchup. Detroit strikes out a ton. I don't think it's a secret anymore. And, as far as guys that can kill him that are right-handed, sluggers type of deal, this Detroit team doesn't really have a lot of guys with like high ISOs, high power. So, you factor in that the matchup, and then you factor in that the wind's blowing in too from right, and you just like it even more. If it's a right-handed hitter and he's trying to pull it out to left field, the wind could have a limited effect. It's more pushing it, from right to left rather than back. But it's still something to think about. It's not gonna hurt Kikel, I don't think at all. If anything, those balls that are hit down the left field line are gonna be pulled foul. So I think that's just gonna help his case. And yeah, so I have some interest in Kikel today. Moving further along, our third guy to have interest in is going to be that in Kyle Gibson, and that's strongly because of his matchup. But Gibson's got good stuff too. When you look at Gibson's numbers, he's got a 22.3% K rate, and then his swinging strike rate, his ground ball, and his fly ball is very impressive. And he gets to take on a Seattle Mariners team that strikes out a ton. So we always like to target these Mariners. It seems like every time I'm breaking down a slate, I'm picking a pitcher against the Mariners, and that's for good reason. It's just a team you want to target, And Gibson's got a 24.8% K rate against righties. Moving further along against lefties, it drops down to 19.8. But he's still respectable across the board. And, as I had mentioned, Seattle's a team we want to target. But we do prefer, for there to be mostly righties. And when looking at their lineup, they're going to roll out pretty much 50-50 for the most part. It looks like, they may have a one more lefty than righty type of deal. It looks like they're going to roll out 4 righties. But Gibson comes in as a 175 favorite, and Vegas is, favoring him pretty heavy. And he's at an 8.6 price tag on DraftKings. So, he's in the mid to high price range. And you got to like him here. So, he's another guy to throw out there. And then my last 2 guys are going to be in these next 2 games. And they're going to be, Lance McCullers taking on the Giants and Dustin May taking on the Padres. So we'll break down Lance first. Lance, when looking at his numbers, he comes in with a 25.8% K rate, 13.1 swinging strike, 55 ground ball, and 27 fly ball. Very good across the board. Against righties, you can see, his WOBA and his slugging aren't the greatest, but he's got that 22.6% strikeout rate, and then ground ball, fly ball is great once again. And against lefties, he actually really excels. The K rate's up to a 29.2%, and then you look across the board, it's green across the board, ground ball, fly ball, WOBA, slugging. So, we can actually target him against lineups with a lot of lefties in it, but righties, he's good against too. And when looking at the lineup he's taking on today, it's looking like they're going to roll out quite a few lefties, and lefties with, decently high K rates. Enough to, with McCullers splits in this Giants lineup, you got to like him a lot. You got Yastrzemski, Dickerson, Bell, Sandoval, Crawford, Heineman. And then these righties, aren't the most elite bats in the league either. So, looking at San Francisco's lineup and McCullers stuff, you got to like McCullers today. The Vegas lines aren't out, but I'm guessing when they come out, he's going to be a pretty heavy favorite. And then Dustin May is our last guy, the young, talented, hard-throwing sinker baller for the Los Angeles Dodgers. He comes in at a 7.7K price tag. He's a 186 favorite. And, when looking at May's numbers, we're dealing with a 48 innings pitch sample size. He's been very good. He's got a 3.55 Sierra, 23.7% K rate. The ground ball, the fly ball, the walk rate is very impressive at a 4% clip. And the hard hit rate's very impressive. It's third best in the slate. We're only dealing with a 48 innings pitch sample size, but still the kid looks great, and he's a top prospect, so he's expected to be good. And then you look at his splits against righties. He's got that 1.8% walk rate against right-handed hitting. That's bonkers. That's impressive. It sticks out. And he's got a 22.7% K rate. And then moving over to lefties, he's got the 25. But you can look at the ground ball, the WOBA, and the slugging against lefties is actually real bad. That's popping, off the sheet as far as being red. So, yeah, that's something to keep an eye on early on in his career. We can definitely keep an eye on that. And when looking at the San Diego Padres lineup, they are, for the most part, a very right-handed heavy lineup. So that makes us like him even more. And Vegas is telling us they like him a lot, But you could definitely throw in the lefties against him, with power. You got Grisham at the top there. Hosmer is a guy that I don't really like to play in daily fantasy sports unless I really like the Padres on that day as a stack. Then I'll throw him in there. But as a one-off, I don't really think he has the power to get the job done for you most days. And then Cronenworth at 2-3 I like a lot. Kid's showing a lot of pop early on, and if May's splits are this bad, he could be a good guy to throw in there for salary relief. So yeah, just throwing out some Padres options maybe to take on the the young kid in May and his split problems. But I like May in this spot. I'm not trying to say I don't. I really do like him, and I have limited interest in these Padres bats. But it's something I have to mention. The splits are there, and I have to mention it. It's something in a large field tournament. It might be able to make you stick out from the field. So I like to throw those things in there during these videos. And yeah, so that's my overall pitcher breakdown. And then let's start breaking down who we want to target for bats and stacks today. So when doing that, I like to sort my sheet by Sierra. And for those of you who don't know what Sierra is, it's just like a metric stat that breaks down, how good a pitcher's been and how good they're projected to be. And it's really helpful for, breaking down guys you want to target. So if you have interest in purchasing this package over on Patreon, that's the type of stuff you can break down and, figure out which hitters you want to target and which pitchers you want to target. So I just want to explain my reasoning there. So yeah, but with that being said, let's go ahead and start breaking this down. The first spot that stands out, we're only dealing with a 13 innings pitch sample size, but Justin Dunn goes into Texas and has to face this, Texas team, which has a ton of power. So they're going to be first on my list today for interest. And when, picking the guys that we have the most interest in, you'll see, well, the first thing that stands out is that Gallo's not expected to be in the lineup. So while it's only one guy, Joey Gallo is the anchor of this lineup, so that can limit the appeal. But at the same time, that can make this stack cheaper for you. So we always like to see that. It's we have to deal with price tags in daily fantasy sports. So if we can get him for cheaper, that's great. So when looking at Dunn splits against righties, he's really struggled in the fly ball category and in the walk category. And then lefties, he's just been absolutely terrible across the board outside of the hard and the slugging, which is a little contradicting because, you're looking at the ground ball and the fly ball and it's really bad, but then the hard and the slugging is down. So that can be tough to decipher. But, he's a kid that I'm going to say we're going to want to go ahead and target. And not only because of him, but because the Seattle bullpen is very bad. And when Dunn is out of this game, they're going to have to hand the ball over to someone that I'm sure I'm going to like to target out of the pen. And that's when our Texas stack's just going to take off. So, guys we want to target the guys with power. And really, for me, I have interest in 1 through 6 for the most part. The 7 through 9 range, I'm not really all that interested in. I like Shin-Soo Choo, I like Solak, I like Odor, I like Todd Frazier, and I like Willie Calhoun. And I like Elvis Andrus to fill in that shortstop spot. If I had to pick my favorites, I'm probably going to go with Choo, Odor, Willie Calhoun. He's got a ton of power. And then Andrus because he's at the shortstop position. Todd Frazier is a guy that you could throw in there. He's in the cleanup spot, but I prefer to target the Todd father when he's in a matchup with left-handed pitching. So, and not that he's a bad play because he's right in the 4th spot in the middle of this lineup. So if you're stacking, I don't have an issue with throwing him in there, but I do prefer him against left-handed pitching. Second on the list, I'm just going to go ahead and get it out of the way because it happens every single time Coors Field's on the slate. So we're going to talk about Coors Field. We have some premier bats on the slate, taking on the lefty and Robbie Ray, who's a high strikeout pitcher, but he gives up a ton of hard contact. And if you look at the weather, we have 79 degrees with wind blowing out to left at 9 miles an hour. So that is juicy for these right-handed hitters. And most notably, Trevor Story and Nolan Arenado. Yeah, love those guys today. We're gonna go ahead and give you guys a little sneak peek of the sheet that I put together here. We're gonna look at Trevor Story splits against lefties because Trevor Story likes him some lefties. So when you go over to Trevor Story's splits against lefties, you can see he's got a 528 slugging, a 251 ISO, and a 365 WOBA. The strikeout rate's at a 26.1% clip, so that could be a concern against Robbie with a guy with a high strikeout rate. But to be honest with you, I don't care. You look at the fly ball and the hard hit rate; they're also just amazing. 42, 42. So yeah, Trevor Story crushes left-handed pitching. I love Trevor Story. When you mentioned the matchup against Robbie, and then you mentioned the fact that the wind's blowing out like it is in Coors Field, yeah, like me some Trevor Story today. And then Nolan Arenado. Nolan Arenado is second on the list, the premier option. You're going to pay the price tag for these guys. And to be honest with you, they're kind of obvious plays, but I want to make sure I emphasize them because they're they're the premier plays on the slate, as far as I'm concerned. You're going to pay for it, but for good reason. Arenado's also a guy that crushes left-handed pitching, and then you got Matt Kemp and Chris Owings down at the bottom of the order, and then Jupiter, I don't mind either at that catcher spot. Really any right-handed hitters on this team. Robbie's got very impressive splits against lefties, so we're not going to really want to target them as much, but the right-handed hitting I love. And then moving over to the Diamondbacks, you got to also have a lot of interest in them. They're on the road, so no matter what happens, they're going to get that top of the ninth hitting appearance. And when looking at who they're taking on today in John Gray, you can see that he has, pretty good numbers across the board, and he's a guy I've mentioned multiple times this season as having good numbers at Coors Field. He seems to be the one guy on the Colorado Rockies staff that can go out there and get the job done consistently at Coors. And so, you got to throw that in there, but, take it with a grain of salt sort of deal. I still like these Diamondbacks a lot. And when looking at his splits, we do have more interest in the left-handed hitters because when you look at the WOBA hard hit rate and slugging, he's worse against lefties. But the righties, he's, below average against as well. So we can go ahead and stack them up, being that they're in Coors Field. So, when breaking down these Diamondbacks that I have the most interest in today, I should say. Primarily the lefties, as we discussed. Gray splits, we do prefer the lefties. So the top of the order, Marte, Calhoun really stick out, and then Eduardo Escobar on the 5-hole I like a ton. David Peralta I like a ton. Stephen Vogt I like a ton, and Jake Lamb I like a ton. And I say I like a ton because of the splits. The splits that we had discussed. But I really do like everyone in this lineup. I know that's broad analysis. It's Coors Field. So we want to get as many lefties in as possible, and then we can throw the righties into it to complete our stack. And that's what we're looking at. But, we also want to look at the overall numbers of the hitters. And Marte and Walker in the middle of this order are some of the premier bats in this lineup. So that can overwrite what I said. But salary is a thing, and we do have some cheaper lefties in here. So, Lamb, Vogt, and Peralta all come in a little cheaper than, the premier price tag of Marte, for instance. So maybe it makes sense to go ahead and throw them in and be able to pay up a little more for pitching. It's a salary cap game that we deal with on a daily basis, so you gotta deal with those decisions. But that, we want the lefties if at all possible, and the righties with the good numbers against right-handed pitching we can throw in as well to complete our stacks. And the lefties are coming out a little bit of a cheaper price tag, so that helps our case. And then moving further along, teams that we want to have interest in. This late night game is one that we're gonna have to touch on because the A's come in with a 5.02 implied run total, and they take on Julio Tehran. And when looking at Tehran's numbers, he comes in as the third worst pitcher on the slate, and he's pretty below average across the board. And then against righties, he's not that bad. And then lefties are what kind of get him in the ground ball and fly ball category, but the slugging's down. So he's just really average across the board. Really, that's what it comes down to. And he's third worst on the slate when it comes to Sierra. So he's a guy that we're going to want to target. And when looking at who we're going to want to target him with, it's really 1 through 5 for me. That's my peak interest in these A's. You're going to have to kind of pay the price tags for them a little bit. They're all in the high 4K range, 5K range, but they're in a good spot. And, I like these A's 1 through 5. They're my main interest. And, you could throw Tony Kemp in there at 3.4K on DraftKings for a wraparound stack. Tony's got some speed, so he can get on base and steal some bases for you. Maybe throw in like a 9-1-2-3 stack to get that speed at the bottom of the order and some price relief, and then throw in the primary bats at the top that we like. So you gotta have interest in those A's, and then the last 2 spots, or I'm gonna say 3 spots. I'm gonna say 3 spots of interest. The first is that in the Chicago White Sox taking on the opener and Michael Fulmer, and then Daniel Norris will come in. The Detroit bullpen is not good, and we have weather to keep an eye on, but something to just go over here. Fulmer's the guy they're going to see first, and we're looking at his numbers. Less than impressive. His ground ball and fly ball rates average, but Splits, righty, he gives up a ton of hard contact and a ton of slugging, and lefties he's a little better against. So we actually prefer right-handed hitters. And the Chicago White Sox are going to provide us with some good right-handed hitters to target. We have Jose Abreu, Eloy Jimenez, and Luis Robert. So I really like that middle of the lineup. And I mean, I like the lefties too. These guys are switch hitters as well. So anyone that they bring from the pen, you're going to have interest in it. And Yohan Moncada is a switch hitter that excels against right-handed pitching. So we're going to like him early on in the game against Fulmer. So I have to mention him. But when looking at the splits, I really like these right-handed heavy or right-handed power bats. So Jose Abreu, Eloy Jimenez, and Luis Robert. I like them today. And our last two options that I'm going to mention, first. Well, you gotta have interest in the Houston Astros bats, and the reason for that, their matchup, they're taking on Logan Webb, who has less than impressive numbers across the board. Looking at his splits against right-handed heavy, he gives up a ton, right-handed hitting, I should say. He gives up a ton of hard contact, a 500 slugging. That's really bad against lefties. He's actually good. So, he's a heavy splits guy, but these splits really stand out. These right-handed hitters we're going to have a lot of interest in. And, guys that crush right-handed pitching. I mean, they're just a good lineup up and down. But, when looking at the splits, we want to play the righty. So we like Altuve, we like Bregman, we like Gurriel, we like Correa. And we even like Miles Straw and Maldonado. Straw's a guy with a ton of speed. When he gets on base, he can give you that stolen base upside. And Webb's got those less than impressive numbers. So I can see Straw punching a few in the gap and getting those stolen bases today. And then Maldonado's a guy with power, so you got to like him. But, our top option, I really like Gurriel and Correa coming in at 4-3 apiece. I really like both of those guys. So, yeah, something to mention. And then lastly, the last spot I want to mention is that in the Boston Reds, or not the Boston Red Sox, I'm sorry, the other side of this game in the Tampa Bay Rays. And why do I want to mention them? Because when we look at Marty and Perez's numbers, they are less than stellar. He's got a 5.37 ERA, a 16.5% K rate. And then against his, when you look at his splits, he gives a 492 slugging against right-handed pitching and a 368 WOBA. Not good. Against lefties, he's very good. So we don't want to target the lefties. We want to target the righties. But this Tampa Bay lineup has some righties that we're going to have a lot of interest in. A lot of interest because, we're playing at Fenway Park with with the Green Monster. And we have 85-degree weather with 8-mile-an-hour winds blowing out. So that just makes me like them even more. So we got Yandy Diaz at the top of the order. Love him. Jose Martinez, 4.0K. Love him. Hunter Renfro, 3.6K. Love him. Willie Adames, 3.4. Love him. Brosu, or I think that's how you pronounce it. Mike's name. Brosu at 3.6. Love him. And Mike Zunino at 3.2K. I really like Zunino. He's got that high strikeout rate, but Perez doesn't have a high strikeout rate, and Zunino crushes left-handed pitching. So, yeah, I like me some Tampa Bay Rays today, which will actually bring me to my home call of the day. As I said, I'm going to try to throw in, my home run call of the day. We nailed it last time with Muncy. We're going to try to nail it again today for you guys. My home run call of the day is that in Hunter Renfro. Hunter Renfro crushes left-handed pitching, and I think in this spot against Marty and Perez, he's taken him yard. So Hunter Renfro is my home run call of the day at 3.6K on DraftKings. You got to like him a lot. And yeah, so that's my, that's my overall breakdown of this slate today. My analysis when breaking down what we've gone over. We have the Chicago White Sox, mainly the righties I like a lot, Eloy Jimenez and Jose Abreu, and then Luis Robert. They're my top options for that lineup. I like Dallas Keuchel on the pitching side. I like Patrick Corbin on the pitching side over here in this game. You could target some one-offs to be contrarian in this Mets lineup. The guys that crush left-handed pitching, I could see throwing in one or two of those guys, or maybe throwing in a full stack in tournaments. But we like Corbin a lot. That's just being contrarian playing those Mets. But these Tampa Bay Rays against Martin Perez, I like a lot. We got Yandy Diaz, Jose Martinez, Hunter Renfro. All these guys, really all these right-handed hitters in this lineup, I have a lot of interest in. They all have good numbers against lefties, and they can crush in this spot. Coors Field, you got to always have interest in. The premier options on the Diamondback side, Kikel, Marty, love him. And, the lefties down here for salary relief. So Lamb, Vogt, and Peralta, you got to like them because they're a little cheaper and they match up with the splits that John Gray displays. On the Colorado side, you got to love the righties. Ray's really good against lefties, so I would avoid the lefties in this spot, but the righties you got to love. Hampson, I like. Story and Arenado are my premier options. I love those guys. And then Matt Kemp I like a lot as well. And then Chris Owings and Butera at the bottom of the lineup. I really do like when you factor in their salaries on DraftKings and, their splits against lefties and then Ray's numbers. Got to like those guys. I like Kyle Gibson on the pitching side over here, taking on Seattle Mariners, and I like the Texas power bats against Justin Dunn. Most notably the left-handed hitters with power, so Sin-Chu Chu, Odor, and Calhoun. I like those guys a lot. I like Lance McCullers taking on the San Francisco Giants, and I like the right-handed hitters on the Astros. I really like all the hitters on the Astros, but, the right-handed ones are the premier bats, and I really like Gurriel and Correa at their price tags on DraftKings at 4-3 apiece. And then I like Dustin May taking on the San Diego Padres at that 7.7K price tag on DraftKings. And then, I like this Oakland A's team, and I like this Oakland A's team pretty much 1 through 5 is my premier options. And then you can throw in these guys in the bottom of the order to, finish off your stacks. But my priority is 1 through 5. Cannon's got a ton of power. Olson's got a ton of power. Laureano's got power and speed. Semion's got power and speed, and he fills up the shortstop position for you. And then Matt Chapman is a guy that has power as well. But I fully understand throwing in like a Robbie Grossman at 2.4. I'm not saying I don't like that play. It's just we prefer these guys. But then when it comes to salary, Grossman comes out at a great price tag of 2.4. So go ahead and throw him in there to complete your stacks. And yeah, that is my breakdown of today's slate. I hope you guys enjoyed the content. I'll be here, every Monday through Friday and on the weekends whenever possible to help you guys become better daily fantasy sports baseball players. You can check out the links in the descriptions, or the links in the description, I should say, where you can gain access to my Patreon package. You can check out my Rotogrinders profile if you'd like to get a little idea of how I've done in some tournaments in the past. That's one thing I've been a little quiet about, but you can check out that because I have had some, decent hits if you want to do a little lookup on my personal profile. And then, if you're interested in my Patreon package, you're going to get this full-on spreadsheet that I've been working on. It's broken down and color-coded by each position in each category like I discussed. I think it's a unique tool that's going to allow you to, really distinguish the top plays on the slate. It helps support me. I really do appreciate it, and I think it's going to help you guys lineups a lot as well. And then lastly, you can follow me over on Twitter at KJK _DFS. And I'll leave you guys with my home run calls. I had mentioned earlier, Hunter Renfro is going deep today. He's my home run call of the day. I like Hunter Renfro. I like those righties in Tampa. And that's what I will sign off with. Go ahead and like this video and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the content and you'll be tuning in for future videos. It really helps me with the YouTube algorithm, and I want to get these videos out to more people. So if you could like and subscribe and hit the notification bell, go ahead and leave a comment too of your favorite pick to hit a home run today. That's all greatly appreciated. So that's all from me today, guys. I wish you the best of luck tonight, and have a good one.